Region, sponsored by Mr. Allison of Canada.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Allison.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and to my fellow parliamentarians, I just want to start off by thanking all of you for your support of my supplementary item, and in particular, the 50 or so parliamentarians who offered their signatures as co-sponsors. Such a volume of support heartens me that so many of you share my regard for this topic and my perspective that diversity enriches our outlook and our experiences. My intention for sponsoring a supplementary item on promoting freedom of religion or belief in the OSCE region was not to single out one country or to detail the numerous instances where individuals and entire groups are discriminated against or face violations or are persecuted for their religion or belief. I believe these are already well documented by others. Instead, I was motivated to highlight the remedies.
Please stop a little moment. We need conditions because it's everybody circulating in the room. Please. We are almost finishing the agenda. Try to give us better conditions. Okay, you can move.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Instead, I was motivated to highlight the remedies to emphasize that the work is not yet done in order that mutual respect and tolerance in the diversity of the OSCE region to be strengthened. I feel strongly that calling on our governments and ourselves as parliamentarians to meet these obligations, to ensure strong legislative frameworks and undertake initiatives related to interfaith dialogues are vital to facilitating and strengthening mutual understanding, tolerance and respect. Each of our countries promotes and protects freedom of religion or belief in its own way. But how this is done must reflect the commitments and the obligations we have undertaken at the OSCE and other international fora, as well as in international covenants and declarations. As we know too well, some better than others, regrettably, tensions and conflicts arise from intolerance, xenophobia, extremism, distrust, and hate. Promoting freedom of religion or belief, acknowledging and protecting our diversity serves to strengthen the democratic foundations on which are built peace, stability, and prosperity. These are in the central tenets of the OSCE, which have committed to uphold. I strongly believe that this supplementary item speaks to all of us, and I ask you for your continued support. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much. And now the debate is open. Inscriptions to this debate. Malta, you have the floor, and after Belgium.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, let me convey my views of my fundamental position on what constitutes a democracy. It is not only the right to vote, just as it is not only the right of the majority. The freedom of expression, the freedom of religion, separation of powers, and free independent press are some of the basic elements that characterize a democracy. These principles cannot be fulfilled without mutual respect between people. A mutual respect for each other's rights and feelings is a main key in a democratic and peaceful society. Freedom and responsibility goes hand in hand and cannot be separated. We can disagree, we can discuss, but we feel like the French philosopher Voltaire, who once said, "I disagree with you with what you said, but I will die for your right to say it." It is of vital importance to understand that freedom of religion and freedom of ideas are meaningless without the freedom of expression. Try to imagine what will be left of the freedom of religion if you are not entitled to express your faith. In other words, freedom of expression is the precondition for the freedom of religion. Every religion seeks to promote peace, understanding, and justice. Peace and justice are the basis for good international relations. Only these can promote international security and stability. Interreligious dialogue, interreligious social contacts, especially in volunteer work, help promotion of understanding and tolerance between people of different races and different religions. Moreover, religious leaders should curb fanaticism based on religious grounds. I do hope that we here present for this assembly understand that only through mutual respect and understanding we can build a better world. Bearing this in mind, I urge you to vote in favor of this supplementary item.
Thank you. And now I give the floor to Belgium.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Rapidement, je trouve cette proposition intéressante parce qu'effectivement, la liberté de conviction, la liberté de pensée, la liberté de conscience est un point important dans nos démocraties. Je voulais tout simplement relever le fait que dans ce point additionnel, on ne met pas suffisamment l'accent sur le fait que ce qui garantit le mieux cette liberté, c'est bien la séparation entre les cultes et l'État. Et je ne vois pas exactement cela dans cette proposition. Et donc j'aurais aimé que l'interprétation, la lecture de cette proposition fasse apparaître que cette garantie puisse être exprimée par cette séparation entre le culte et l'État. Merci.
Thank you. And now Mr. Coleman from Canada.
I'd like to begin by congratulating my colleague for this supplementary item and urging members of the Assembly to support it. As already mentioned, each of our countries promotes and protects freedom of religion or belief in its own way. In Canada, for instance, our Charter of Rights and Freedoms is hailed as an important tool for protecting freedom of religion or belief, particularly against legislation and government action that might otherwise violate it. Moreover, this freedom features prominently in Canada's multiculturalism policy, which celebrates the cultural and religious diversity of our population. Freedom of religion or belief is especially vital for vulnerable minority groups who face various forms of discrimination and even violence, whether they reside in our own countries or elsewhere. Accordingly, just a few months ago, Canada established the Office of Religious Freedom, which will be dedicated to promoting freedom of religion or belief as a key Canadian foreign policy priority. With an annual budget of $5 million Canadian dollars, the office is mandated to focus on defending religious minorities, monitoring religious freedom, and speaking out against egregious violations of freedom of religion. We as parliamentarians must commit ourselves to ensuring that our governments do even more to uphold this fundamental freedom as a key value of our societies. The challenge in this respect is, as always, to balance the freedom of religion with the entire body of human rights commitments and with reasonable limits that can be demonstrably justified in a free and democratic society. In this context, Canada itself continues to struggle with issues related to head coverings and other religious symbols in public spaces in the face of its changing social and political culture. Other examples touch on religious groups whose belief systems prohibit photographs from being taken, raising complications for government-issued photo-based identification cards, such as the case of the Hutter rights and driver's licenses. Regrettably, this list of issues also includes anti-Semitism and other hate crimes targeting religious groups. In conclusion, I want to reiterate that these are complex and even contentious matters, but by strengthening the capacity of our legal structures and holding public dialogues, we can take important steps towards reinforcing freedom of religion in the context of other human rights, and thereby towards greater mutual respect and tolerance. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Mr. Smith for USA.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. First, let me thank the distinguished author of this resolution, Mr. Allison, for his not only timely but it's an extraordinarily important resolution. There is a need to address a disturbing trend whereby governments in the OSCE region persecute people for their religious beliefs and fail to protect members of religious minorities from discrimination and violence. Laws in a number of participating states discriminate against so-called non-traditional religious communities and criminalize proselytizing, resulting in members of religious communities being targeted for harassment and legal sanctions by government authorities. Some participating states misuse so-called extremism laws to target peaceful expression of religious beliefs, so to unjustly imprison and harass members of religious and other communities. A number of OSCE participating states have registration requirements that discriminate against minority religious groups that can result in criminal sanctions for engaging in so-called unregistered religious activities. Others have banned or attempted to ban head coverings and other religious attire in public places. Such laws and actions, Madam Chair, it should be noted, often serve as precursors of other more extreme discriminatory practices and even violence. These practices run counter to OSCE commitments on freedom of religion, as specified in the Vienna document from 1989, which requires participating states to, quote, respect the right of religious communities to establish and maintain freely accessible places of worship or assembly and organize themselves according to their own hierarchical and institutional structure. Again, I want to thank our good and distinguished colleague from Canada for sponsoring and authoring this important resolution.
Thank you. Mr. Aderholt of USA.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I just wanted to commend the gentleman from Canada as well for his resolution. The freedom of religion, thought, conscience, or belief is a fundamental right. And I think by the OSCE and by this committee going on record concerning this issue is very important, and I would encourage all of my colleagues here to support the resolution.
I call now Mr. Allison to respond to the debate.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just in the essence of time, I know that time is moving on here in the session. There's another resolution. I want to thank all my honourable colleagues for their comments and appreciate their support for the bill.
Okay, thank you. And that concludes the debate of the draft.